What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Babbles Nonsense podcast. Today is going to be an episode kind of like a stream of consciousness thoughts, if you will. It's going to be more almost journal entry like I'm reading from a journal, just because I was feeling a little uninspired to put out an episode just in my meh phase, if you will. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So if you're interested in how I pull myself out of those uninspired moments, or quote unquote what I call meh, like I'm just blah, like nothing's really good, nothing's really bad, that's what this episode is going to be about today. So stay tuned. What is up, you guys? How are we doing? I hope this audio is okay. I get nervous because last week when I was recording my solo episode, I heard like a really loud pop, which it's done before when I was in New York, and then the audio was just horrendous. But when I'm listening back, the audio seems okay. So if it does sound different, I apologize. But hopefully it sounds okay for you guys. It's just I record differently when I have guests versus when I'm solo. Like I record on my computer when I'm solo, just because it's easier just to record into the audio GarageBand so that I can edit as I go, but I can also like see the spikes and if I'm being too loud and whatnot. Whereas with my equipment, that's really good equipment, I just have to write down times and then go back and edit that way. It's not a lot of editing. I just don't, when I do solos, I really just don't want to go back and listen to myself. That's what it comes down to. So again, I hope this audio is okay. But what is up? Welcome back. I hope everyone had a blessed and happy Easter. If you do celebrate, I feel like I had a very lovely Easter. I watched church from home, which don't crucify me. Like I completely understand watching church from home versus going to church is different. Number one, I just really don't like crowds. Like I go to Summit Crossings here in Madison and I just really don't like crowds. Our pastor is wonderful though, and they are very accepting, and I'm very happy that they do have online church for like when you're sick or things like that and you just can't get there. But in this situation, with it being Easter, it's almost like for me, like that panicking of like, I don't like going to the gym at New Year's, because even though I go to the gym regularly, that busy moment, I just don't love it. But anyways, I watched from home. It was a lovely service. I still participated by myself with my dog, and it was a great service. And then I got to go to my friend Mal's house, which I always go to her parents' house for holidays and things like that. And we had a great lunch. We ate some delicious food. Her sister is vegan, so I typically eat their stuff. Like she's now going gluten-free, so we eat a lot of vegan gluten-free things. And then of course I eat some meat, but she doesn't care. I'm still trying to get her on the podcast just to have like an episode about being vegan, because she's been vegan for so long, and just like the differences and what people think it is versus what it actually is. So maybe one day I can talk her into it. She keeps telling me no every time I ask her, but maybe we could. Also had some delicious gluten-free desserts that she made. And then I bought a strawberry cake from Mason-Dixon, which is a bakery here local to Huntsville. If you ever come to Huntsville, visit Huntsville, if you're gluten-free, even if you're not, they have some delicious food. Highly, highly recommend. She's also been on the podcast, and since having her on the podcast, that has made me love her and her bakery even more. So, what else happened this weekend? I had a psychic reading from my good friend Chris Medina. I do that like once a year. He's just amazing, and he truly is gifted. And I highly, 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 if you like have been thinking about a psychic reading, definitely recommend him. Look him up on Instagram. Be cautious. There are fake accounts out there. He will never solicit you on Instagram or anything like that. You have to go to his website, book a reading, and then it's all through email. So don't ever fall for anything in your DMs, because he just doesn't do that. But anyways, nothing really to report on the reading. I've kind of been in this cycle with myself for a few years on what I'm going through mentally, like whether it be career, relationships, house, goals, things like that. So nothing new that he really reported, other than he just really reiterated and drove home some things that I've been struggling with in my personal life. And he like re-mentioned conversations that I had with some people recently that nobody else would have known because I didn't tell even my closest friends those conversations. And he like said like this one line that I exactly said. And I was just like, how did you know that? And he was like, well, of course you already knew this, but it's just for me to reiterate so that you remember what you said. And I was like, well, that makes sense. So basically I got to get out of my own damn way to get things done. We all do. That just is what it is. So let's get to the topic for today. I'm going to be fully transparent with you guys, keeping it real. I have been lacking motivation, and not just with the podcast motivation, but just in general. And no, I would not say that I am depressed. Now, I know some people, when they have like a motivation, that may be depression. And if that is you, in that case, I truly recommend seeking help, because this podcast is not to give any type of psychiatric advice. This is just kind of my own personal experience in me feeling that lack of motivation, or that lack of like oomph, like get up and go type thing, if you will. So since I'm lacking motivation, I thought that, well, why don't we just turn that lack of motivation into some inspiration and make it into a topic on the podcast, because I'm sure others have felt that way, or maybe feel that way, or can relate in some fashion. Because I feel like no one, and if you are, like, I feel like no one is truly 100% all the time up, up, up. And if you are, good for you. Like, I would love to be that person that's just so positive, never has a down moment, can turn anything that's negative into a positive. I'm working and striving to be there. I am just not there yet. If y'all hear some rambunctiousness in the background, that is my chihuahua. Every time I sit down to record, she decides to run a marathon in the room that I'm recording in. So she's now finally settled down, so maybe she'll just stop for a little bit. But anyways, going back to the topic, like, just when I say meh, I mean like MEH, like just blah, like not really good, not really bad. You know, I've been very open on this podcast about mental health with depression and anxiety, relationships, woes, whatever you want to say. Like I try to be as open as I can, or what I feel comfortable being open about. Obviously, everyone has to keep some things private, especially when it's involving other people, because it's not always fully the story to tell. But like I said, if you've never experienced that feeling, I'm truly happy for you, because it's kind of hard to describe. It's those moments where you're like, I'm not happy, but I'm not sad, but I just don't want to do anything. But I'll do it because I have to, and that's what adults do, right? So like, I can't just sit on my couch and eat bonbons all day because shit won't get done. Bills won't get paid. So you get up and you do things that you have to do, but it's more of like I'm just walking through life because that's what I'm supposed to do type feeling. Now, some days I would be like 1000% would love to just sit on the couch and binge Netflix and be content with that. And, you know, speaking of content or contentment, you know, when I've had conversations with Minu, who is the energy healer that I work with, she's done co-hosting with the podcast with me. I'm going to bring her back, and maybe this would be a great topic to talk to her about. But she says that feeling really isn't a meh, it's more of a contentment feeling. And because I have grown up with a childhood of just chaos, and I'm constantly like thinking I need to be doing something, or constantly thinking I need to be catching someone's attention, that when I go through those moments of not feeling that way, then I feel somewhat down, because it's not my norm. Even though it's still a healthy feeling, it gets confusing in my brain, because I'm like, just like I said, like that, I grew up in chaos. I thrive in chaos. If I have a lot to do, I actually really thrive. So if I'm going through a moment in my life where there's just not a lot to do, whether it be, you know, work slowing down, I should really enjoy those moments and just be like, oh, great. Because you never know, like everything ebbs and flows, right? It's like, it could just come up again where you have too much to go do. But when I typically thrive in those moments. So yes, I know that sounds crazy, but beyond that, to me, it's just more of a coming from a place of lack of motivation. And really that just can come from anywhere. So like, I try to ask myself, like, where is this coming from? Am I depressed? Am I feeling depressed? And usually I know if I'm feeling a little down or depressed, which I'm like, no, that's not it. Like, I can't really put my hand on it, which again, it's probably just contentment. Like, I'm just content with how things are. And it's just a weird feeling to me, which I need to start embracing. And I know that, but I try to like look inward and say, like, what is this coming from? Am I exhausted? Am I overworking? Am I having some burnout? Is it truly depression or anxiety? Is it just a situational moment? What am I going through in my life? Am I going through a dating hiccup? Am I going through breakups, like feeling uninspired with the podcast? Or am I just overwhelmed and therefore I'm telling myself I have no motivation because I'm like, too much to do, let's sit down. Usually not the last one for me because like I said, if I'm overwhelmed, I actually kind of get inspiration from that. I don't know why, I just do. Again, probably from my childhood. Now that I think about it, this is something I really think I'm going to get Menu on the podcast to talk about, because like to talk about this with someone who, teaches or works through these things with people, she would be a really good person to have on to discuss this. Also, though, some medical conditions could even have you feeling that way. Like I know I struggle with thyroid issues. And so sometimes when my thyroid's kind of low, I feel a little bit more like, don't really care to do anything today. Unsure currently what mine is stemming from, unless it's truly, like I said, just contentment, because things are, in my opinion, going pretty well. I know I do have a tendency to be like, okay, things are well. When is that other drop coming? Like, when is this quote unquote goodness going to end? And so maybe I'm just looking for that and just feeling a little different. I don't know. I really, truly don't know. Some say that's speaking things into fruition. Others say that is intuition. Jury's still out on which one I believe. Maybe a little of both, but I don't know. Regardless, I haven't had much happening, which is good, but leaves me uninspired for creative outlets. Me and That's Kenny talked about this on her episode of the podcast, where sometimes like when you are a creative, which she had to help me understand that having this podcast, I am a creative, when I was like, oh, wow, okay, maybe I am. Because you have to be creative to keep people inspired and, feeling joy from the episodes, or maybe laughing at the episodes, and maybe you want it to be captivating so that they don't turn it off. And then sometimes you're just like, well, I just don't have it in me to do that today. But I do have a lot of events coming up this weekend, in the next couple weeks, this weekend in particular. Going to have a couple girls' nights to go out and celebrate for some upcoming birthdays. So maybe the inspo will hit then, and I'll have a lot to talk about. Hopefully nothing dramatic happens, but if it does, I guess you'll hear about it. Regardless of what the why is behind that feeling, the thing I typically try to focus on is getting out of it. Because to me, it's coming from a place like I feel like this is negative. Again, it may not. It may just be contentment, which is neither negative or positive. And what works for me doesn't work for everyone. So I try to find inspiration like out in other things, like whether that be podcast, I get on social media, which I know they say not to do, but I do, like, just passing time, like where I'm scrolling reels or TikTok videos. That might spark some interest in me to like debate something or research a topic further. Lately, my TikTok feed, because like I said, guys, I don't typically just get on TikTok to scroll. If I'm going to TikTok, I use it as a Google search because it gives you short videos quickly. I used to do that on YouTube, which I still do on YouTube, but YouTube's videos are longer. So I just get on TikTok and like type in like last week, for instance, when I was doing the Love is Blind topic in relationships, like type in Love is Blind season 6 into the research bar, get all these short little videos to kind of get a recap on everything, to remind myself. And then when I do that, like my TikTok feed then shows me like other relationship advice, whether it be like right now, for whatever reason, my TikTok feed is about relationship attachment styles. If you don't know what those are, that's like an avoidant attachment style, anxious attachment style, anxiously avoidant. And then there's like the healthy attachment style. And I think it's doing that because I typed in Love is Blind. I'm not really sure. Maybe it's because me and my friend send videos back and forth about funny like relationship things just because of what she's going through. And so we'll send each other, and like what I've been through, like we'll send each other things that kind of relate and they're kind of funny. So they're usually about relationships. So that could be why my feed is like that. I'm not really sure. I don't know how TikTok algorithm or Instagram algorithm works, to be honest. It seems to be changing every day. But anyway, so like I'll just try to find inspiration, right? Like I'll just go out and be like, what topic can I speak on today? And then other times things just happen in my life where I'm just like, I am really going to drive this home. I'm going to talk about it. As y'all have noticed, like last week, I was like, haven't done one of these episodes in a while. So talked about relationships last week. And that was just something that I was personally going through in my personal life. So it was just easy to do. Other things I try to do is like dive deeper into health topics because I'm really into health. I don't talk about it a lot on this podcast, and I probably should, but I really do love like working out and eating nutritiously and learning about different types of diets or foods or whatever. I love going down a rabbit hole on thyroid health and hormone health, and that's probably because I'm just genuinely interested in it since I currently have thyroid and hormone dysfunction. I'm always looking for like, what can I do to heal? How can I heal? What's out there that I haven't heard of? Because, medicine changes all the time. Which, speaking of that, I'm going to go off on a different little, not tangent, but like topic here. I was introduced to the medical medium recently. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of the medical medium, but it was just interesting how it was brought up to me. I was having the consult, which I talked about my plastic surgery to my eyes. I had a consult with an oculoplastic surgeon in Tampa a few weeks ago. And I just mentioned to her, I have thyroid issues and autoimmune issues, and asked her if she thought that's why I keep having this condition with my eyes. And she was like, you really should look up the medical medium. He's helped thousands and millions of people, like even celebrities. So I was like, oh, okay. Like, well, what is this? Like, I'll look it up. So this guy apparently can speak to spirits about your health, and he knows what's wrong and how to fix it. He has several books. There's probably like any condition you have, you could probably look up a book. I know this may be too woo-woo for some people, and like whatever. It just listen if you want, skip past this portion if you want. But I do believe in higher levels of beings on earth. I mean, let's be honest. The Bible talks about prophets who prophesize the future. So why can't other people have gifts to speak like to spirits and or see the future? Like I truly believe people have gifts. Now, I don't know. I do believe it. Anyways, you don't have to believe it. That's just my belief. Regardless of what you believe in, I recently went down that rabbit hole of like the whole medical mediums stuff because he has a book on thyroid healing. So I was like, okay, let me read his book, listen to his book, look it up. And it brought out some interesting like perspectives, one in which I've never considered before. So long story short, to not like make this whole podcast about the medical medium, he believes that the EBV virus, which is the monovirus, is the root cause of thyroid dysfunction. And like he even says like you may not even know that you had mono because some like, everyone's virus hits them differently, just like the flu does, just like COVID did. And he goes on to say that like research kind of stopped before its time, and researchers didn't continue researching, showing that EBV virus is in stages. There's different stages. And he says like it starts in the liver. If it progresses past the liver, if it can't like detox itself out, then it goes to the thyroid, and then it progresses to the brain and the neurological system. So like, obviously if it goes to the thyroid, you can have thyroid dysfunction, hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's. If it goes to the brain, to the neurological system, you can have things like MS. And so I continue to read this book, and he's like talking about how your body just wants to heal itself, and there's other pathways for the body to compensate for thyroid dysfunction. And I was like, okay, well that logically makes sense because like organs regrow. Like if you cut out half your liver, it can regenerate. So I was like, that makes sense. And then like his perspective on autoimmune diseases. So if you don't know what an autoimmune disease is, that is where quote unquote the body attacks itself. So they call it autoimmune. Your body's attacking itself. For whatever reason, whatever triggered that autoimmune response in yourself. His version is that why would the body attack itself? He's like, it wouldn't. It tries to naturally heal itself. So this EBV virus is in your thyroid or wherever, like in your joints and wherever your autoimmune disease may be, and your body is attacking the actual virus, not the organ. So I was just like, I mean, that kind of makes sense. Like, why would your body just like all of a sudden be like, my body is foreign to me? That doesn't, I mean, medically speaking, it doesn't really make sense, but we just go with it because that's what we're told, right? that especially like in medical school or nursing school, that's what we're told. So I was like, okay, I can continue to go with this. And of course, like his side is like, you can heal your body with foods, and you really shouldn't take medicine for this. And that's where I'm kind of like, I don't know what I believe. Like, I get what he's saying. Like, people out there with hypothyroidism are walking around taking medication and still feeling hypothyroid. But then my part is like, are they optimal? Are they on the right medication? Are they on the right dose? Because I'm on thyroid medication, and quote, knock on wood, my symptoms are pretty much at bay because I stay optimal, because I am very fortunate that I have a doctor and a nurse practitioner that listen to me and my symptoms and don't just look at me in lab values. I also advocate for myself and get all my thyroid labs drawn. But also part of me is like that functional side of me. I'm like, well, I mean, I get it. Like, food is supposed to be healing. Like, people healed with food way before medicine ever advanced the way it did. So I don't know. I'm going to keep reading, going to keep trying to see where my opinion lies. But if you're interested in that sort of thing and it's not too woo-woo for you, highly recommend Medical Medium to check out. Again, this is not medical advice. You do what you want. Talk to your doctor before you do anything that he recommends. But it's just something I was diving into to kind of get myself out of this lack of motivation. And it worked. But I read the book in a week, so now I need another book. But other things I tend to do to get myself out of that mood is dive more into other things in the health world. So I do try to continue to focus on my workouts and my steps. Like, even when I'm like, I do not, like, I'll be working all day and I'm like, I do not want to go home and walk, but I have a step goal from my personal trainer. And I will be honest, paying a personal trainer gets my ass into gear despite me not wanting to do something or feeling not inspired to do something. And I will say, mostly because I'm paying for a service, I am good with my money. I don't like wasting money. So if I'm paying for something, I'm going to use it. Once I stop using a service, like, this got to go. But yeah, so I'll get my steps in. I'll go for a walk. That passes time. Sometimes that spikes inspiration. Like, I was on a walk today when I was like, I really just don't know what I want to put out for the podcast. And then I was like, well, why don't I just talk about this lack of inspiration? I just sat down and wrote out all my thoughts, and boom, here's the podcast. So sometimes going for a walk can just clear your head, get some inspiration going. Other things that I like to do, and it's mostly just to pass time. I will say that. Like, I think sometimes my feeling is more boredom. Like, sometimes I just get bored and I'm just like, I need to pass some time because I don't have anything to do. Mostly because I'm boring. But I get in my sauna. I don't have a sauna. I have a sauna blanket. Looks like a sleeping bag. I get in my sauna blanket, and then I do try to do meditation. I'll be honest. Meditation is it's hard. And I'm one of these people that I still just don't love it. I want to love it because it's supposed to be so good for you, and people literally rave about it. I'm not good at it. And I think when I'm not good at something, I just don't love to do it. But again, those are just things that I mostly do to pass time. But here lately, I've been spending a lot of time and thoughts with my house. Like, I've mentioned this on the podcast, doing projects here and there. Recently painted 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms in the house, which drove me insane. I don't know. I like doing stuff like the finished project, always great, but going through it is hell. But again, doing something, keeping your mind busy, finding inspiration, having a feeling. So with that being said, like with the house, like, I haven't really fully decided if I'm going to paint the living room and the kitchen or if I'm just going to keep it the color it is. Like, I'm really torn because the color it is like a grayish green, very warm, inviting, feels homey. And then of course I painted the bedrooms and the bathrooms white, not like a stark white, but a warm white. And it still feels warm and inviting. And I really love it because it looks more brighter and open, and it makes everything look bigger and cleaner. But then it's like thinking about painting the living room and the kitchen because everything is just so open. I just don't know. I don't know. We'll see. But like, over the past couple of years, I've done things like the painting. I finally got the closets that I wanted, like changing everything from wire racks to wooden shelving. Screened in my patio, got some landscaping to fix up. But then most recently, like the past couple weekends, things that I physically could do instead of other people doing them, just to kind of again, not sit on the couch all day eating my bonbons. I don't even know what a bonbon is. I don't know why I say it. I guess it's just because it's a saying that people say. But I have been doing small things that I can do around the house. Like I've changed all my cabinetry stuff from like silver to black. I've changed like door hinges also from silver to black, like just changing all the silver in the house to black fixtures. And I've been wanting since I moved in this house to change bathroom lighting from these silver. Like they were cute. They just weren't my style. And it looked like these Beauty and the Beast, like overhead lamps in the bathroom. So I changed it to a more modern, like sleek black, which is really cute, which took me 2 damn days to do. I had to call my stepdad, who's an electrician, and was like, what am I doing wrong? Like I keep putting this on the ceiling, why I kept tightening everything to the ceiling before I got down to see if it would work. Don't know. But I would literally like screw everything into the ceiling and my shoulders were killing me, and would get up there and one light worked. He was like, well, do you have everything? Are you sure? Then we realized I had to strip the wires. And finally, on the second day, got both the lights up. And I'm like, okay, please don't fall off the ceiling because that would be embarrassing. So far, so good. They've made it a week. So doing things like that. I've also just been painting my grout in the bathroom. So I have these like tile in all the bathrooms and laundry room. So I've been painting the grout because for whatever reason, when I moved in this house, it was like a gray, like some areas were gray and then some were white. And I don't know if that was just because the tile is gray and white. So I was like, I thought grout was supposed to match. So I started painting the grout in my bathroom to like a more vibrant white, and it literally looks night and day. Love it. But it's a very long process, and I don't know, like my shoulders killing me, knees, like trying to paint the grout killing me, but I still have my guest bathroom to do, and then I should be done with it. But again, things to just do to pass my time. And actually it's kind of very therapeutic. You know, it's like almost like painting, like how adults have like paint by numbers. Honestly, it's kind of like that. I just sit there, listen to a podcast, listen to some music. Last time I just literally sat with my thoughts and was just like thinking, and I actually did have some inspiration, but that was last weekend, and that was on last week's podcast. I was like, I really think I want to recap Love is Blind. Like, I really love that show. But don't get me wrong. With all that said, the things that I do, passing time, I do have those days where I'm like, screw it. We sitting on the couch today, boo. We sitting on the couch. Me and the chihuahuas, we sitting on the couch. When I say chihuahuas, I mean one. Me and Chunky Butt sitting on the couch. But for me and my busybody, like my mind, like I said, going back to my childhood and how everything was chaotic, I quickly become bored. And sometimes like that's what I think my feeling is. It's just boredom. So again, going back to contentment, the more I sit and talk about this, I think it is just contentment. That's why sometimes podcasts are just very therapeutic for me, because I'm like, oh, I'm talking about my feelings and my emotions. I think it's just truly contentment, and I just get bored because I don't personally know what to do with contentment. Like, I don't know what to do when things aren't all awry, things are busy, I have a lot to do. And then if you've noticed, the things that I do to pull myself out of that mood is to stay busy. So that's probably what it is. But also, like, I'm not a stranger to talking about therapy. I've been in and out of therapy. Like, I worked with Minu, who is an energy healer, and love that. Sometimes I say therapy isn't working because talk therapy is just talking, right? Like, I obviously can talk. I don't have an issue talking. I can get on this mic and just talk. But that doesn't always solve the issue. But like we just figured out what was going on. It is contentment. So sometimes talking does work. And then, when I'm having deeper conversations with friends, or even doing episodes like this, like where I am just talking and figuring things out, I'm like, okay, maybe therapy is working. So that's another option for people, is to go to therapy. So with all that said, like if you find yourself feeling uninspired or in these down moments, I see you and I feel you. Now, if it's true depression, like if you feel like you have lost interest in things you once loved, or you no longer want to, eat or drink, or things that sound like true depression, definitely encourage you to seek help and talk to someone, talk to a family member, talk to a friend, call a therapist, talk to someone. There is no shame in talking about our mental well-being. I know there is still some stigma around it, but it is getting better, and we should never truly care what other people are thinking about our mental well-being, because that is something that we really just have to get over the stigma. And I know it's easier said than done. And of course, again, this is in no way advice to anyone. But that's just something I highly recommend is if you're feeling that way to seek help, because there is help out there and it could be very beneficial. I'm not talking about true depression. I'm talking about just moments where you just either feel content, you feel meh, you feel uninspired, you're lacking motivation just because things are kind of calm in your life. And these are just the things that I do that typically work for me. That does not mean that it's going to work for everybody else. Like I said, working through this episode when I'm like, oh, everything that I do, like I'm sitting here like just thinking about what I'm talking about. And it's like, oh, everything I do is like to stay busy, to move, to motivate, to try to find motivation. When really, sometimes you just need to sit with yourself, let the thoughts flow through you, let the energy flow through you, welcome the energy that's there. That's what I've learned from me and you. And it's all going to work out and it's all going to be okay. Again, I'll drive it home and reiterate this. If it's depression, seek counseling or help and talk to someone, because that is a different story. And sometimes there's other factors that are out of your control. But I am going to see if me and you can come on and do an episode about this with me. Just to have it like in a more professional, like obviously from a professional who deals with this with other patients, who can kind of give you better suggestions, if you will. But otherwise, I want to thank you for listening. I know this is not the typical episode I do. It's not like an uplifting episode, but it was just what I was going through in the moment. And I just was like, why not share it? I haven't shared stuff like this before. And I'm not always like, oh, let's go get it. Like always feeling inspired. And sometimes I think if we hear other people just in what they go through, because like I said, like I've mentioned this like on social media, like we look to social media thinking everyone is always happy, always like bubbly, always these things, when really it's just a highlight reel, you know? And like, and sometimes that's with the podcast. Y'all get an episode of me once a week. And sometimes like there's a lot of great things going on, or I'm just sharing only the good things and not some of the bad things. And I think if we just all like connected on a human level where everyone is going through certain things and we can share and connect on that level, then it just makes the world such a better place because we don't feel alone. But anyways, guys, I will end it there. Always like, share, and subscribe to the pod if you love these episodes. And until next time, guys, bye.